video with Jack Nicholas has kind of brought to light some of the points I was making throughout the kind of issues around not specialising too soon, making sure we've got those movement skills correct, but also around the transferability of the skills learned in one sport which are going to help in another. Now we're going to look at the cost of specialisation in sport. So, what is the impact of specialising too early? So, arguments against sport specialisation include things like, overuse injuries, psychological burnout, unidimensional self-concept, diluting the talent pool, denies athletes meaningful contact with other coaches and other athletes, stops those, the ability of transferable skills, so one sport that might help another, may result in an athlete missing out on their potential of their best sport. We might start off playing soccer, but then experience something else, and then I'm really talented at that. It may actually cause issues between athletes and coaches. And then, key things to do with injury and burnout. It leads to burnout because of repetitive strains and stress, decrease in intrinsic motivation, enjoyment because of overtraining, and socialisation or overdependence because of, they're focusing on one sport where maybe their friends or, are doing other things. So, there's lots of arguments against specialising in one particular sport too soon. So, moving on from those, arguments against specialisation, I'm going to focus on some of the key points. So dropping out, whether it's burnout, injury, or it's actually because of those psychological issues around motivation. It could be that they're not motivated to take part in that sport anymore. So as a result of early specialisation, it doesn't allow the children and youth to experience the playful enjoyment found to be, important for elite athlete development before that age of 12, because ultimately you want the kids to be motivated and wanting them to stay in the sport and wanting to be active. So if we put all our eggs in that one basket and they get put off by it, then our talent pool, if we're doing that with all our athletes, our talent pool is forever going to be reduced. Whereas if we get this diversification from an early point, then we specialise, which that longevity of their enjoyment is probably going to be increased, and they're more likely to stay and take part in activity. Premature emphasis on the technical training, deliberate practice and competitive may actually kind of put them off. That kind of motivation and love for the sport may be reduced as a result of that. Which ultimately, to be the elite performer, you need to have passion and commitment to that sport, and not having that enjoyment throughout is going to ultimately affect that. The other thing we talked about is burnout. So early specialisation is linked to burnout of sport. And another kind of negative consequence, so it could be because of, previously the activity was enjoyable and now it's become, not enjoyable experience and therefore physically put off. It might be the physical burnout, the emotional exhaustion of taking part in the activity, and maybe the pressure from coaches and parents. So focusing on some figures and information to back up this, children who specialise in a single sport account for 50% of overuse injuries in young athletes. A study by Ohio State University found that children who specialise early in a single sport led to higher rates of adult physical inactivity. Those who commit to one sport at a young age are often first to quit and suffer lifetime consequences of this. In a study of 1,200 young athletes, they found that early specialisation in a single sport is one of the most strongest predictors of injury. Athletes in the study who specialised were 70% to 93% more likely to be injured than children who played multiple sports. Children who specialise earlier are far greater risk of burnout due to stress, decreased motivation and lack of enjoyment. So focusing on that, I think this diagram demonstrates, in terms of the model of specialisation, it's particularly the purple side of this model. You can see entry into sport. What we're talking about is that early sampling. So playing activities, having fun, enjoying it, developing those movement skills. Then obviously specialising in later years, and then obviously investment into that high performance environment. But what we've got is, as a result of this early specialisation, is this purple side here. And as a result of that, it's very deliberate practice, not much play, and it's very focused on one sport, and that's where you're going to get the dropout as a result of it. So what we're trying to do is move towards this early sampling, specialising later on and investing into that sport, and hopefully we should end up with a bigger talent pool as a result of this model. So I've talked about early specialisation and some of the kind of negative impacts of it. I think the following two YouTube videos I'd like you to watch, which give actual examples of experiences within sport that are a result of early specialisation.